Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Duncan Graham. I'm Managing Director of Retail Excellence, and I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar. This is part of a webinar series that we will be running up until Christmas. It's a fascinating time to be taking on a new role, and I'm really looking forward to working with you all. And you never know, hopefully one day actually meeting you and actually shaking hands. Now, wouldn't that be a novel experience in the current world? Anyway, it's been an interesting week for us here in Retail Excellence. We had a very good meeting yesterday with the Minister for Retail, Damien English, where we discussed a number of key challenges that are facing the industry, including the employment wage subsidy scheme, the pressures on rents, and the current and future requirements for the industry as we head towards Christmas. So there will be more on that. If you look out for the membership update, which we now issue every Friday morning, there'll be more detail on that in that update tomorrow. Before I introduce our special guest speaker, Alan O'Neill, I'd like to thank our sponsors for today, who are Grant Thornton, and I'd like to introduce their audit and assurance partner, Damien Gleeson, who will be outlining some of the supports available to members during these unprecedented times. Grant Thornton have been a key partner of ours for a number of years, and we're delighted that Damien can join us for a short while this afternoon. Over to you, Damien.
Hi, Duncan. Many thanks for the introduction, and I'm delighted to have a few minutes today just to explain a couple of the issues that clients of ours are facing, and indeed the retailers in the retail world. First and foremost really is to talk through the EWSS scheme, which replaces the TWSS scheme as of from the 1st of September 2020. So just the key points on this are that turnover is expected to be down 30% before you enter into the scheme. The EWSS is a flat subsidy scheme which is based on the employee's gross wages. The EWSS subsidy will be taxable in payroll. This wasn't the case with the previous scheme. Separate registration for the EWSS scheme in advance of submitting the payroll is absolutely a necessity, and each entity, very importantly, must have a tax clearance certificate. So they're the key points with regards to the scheme. Another factor, proprietary directors, it hadn't been the case previously when this scheme was announced that they would be able to take advantage of it, but it has been announced recently that this has been changed and they will indeed be able to take advantage of it. So just if there's any aspects of that that are troubling people, either to talk to their advisor or indeed you can contact us at Grant Thornton on it. Just a couple of other issues that the clients are facing, and indeed again retailers, and our corporate finance team has dealt with a number of different retailers on this. It's effectively cash flow management with regards to the business activities. Integrated financial modeling is absolutely crucial at this point in time. Every business has come through a very difficult 5 or 6 months, and it's likely to continue into the future. So putting together a realistic financial model and following through on it in a form that's you know, that customers or our clients are actually looking at their activities and how their activities are going to continue in as realistic a fashion as possible. We've also acted as intermediary with a number of clients with banks, and open and honest communication with the bank is vital. And just to share with you, one of our clients only yesterday received a letter from one of the pillar banks just to indicate that the ongoing moratorium, which they've enjoyed for the last 3 to 6 months, it's not an option to continue. So just beware that everybody is facing into the possibility of receiving such letters in the next 3 to 4 weeks as we come to the end of September, 6 months into the crisis. So when I say it's not an option, the bank has actually given a couple of options in terms of how this could be continued, and one is actually going back on full interest and capital. The second one is increasing the interest and capital payments. I can't imagine that that's one that people are going to be able to take advantage of. But the third one is, if you're not in a position to go to take either option one or option two, to contact the bank to discuss how your financing can be arranged into the future. I think this is where it's crucial to engage with an intermediary like ourselves or your own financial advisor, and to basically to communicate as best as possible the financial position of your own business, and where you see your cash flows. Because if at the end of the day the banks can't operate unless they have full visibility in terms of your financial position. And just the last thing I wanted to go through is that obviously you will have a lot of businesses that have taken a huge dip in trade over the 5 or 6 months. The wage subsidy scheme will have assisted in terms of your ability to deal with your creditors, but by the same token, you may, if you've been affected drastically by the crisis, you may have a build-up of liabilities such as landlord liabilities, revenue liabilities, and customer and supplier liabilities. So if you are in that position and you need to engage with specialists, we're able to come up with a few different solutions in it, and they may range in terms of anything from a scheme of arrangement with creditors up to and including examinership and possible liquidation. Now, liquidation doesn't have to sound as dramatic as one would take it. It could be effectively a hive out of a viable portion of the business, and moving forward with a solvent arrangement and leaving the insolvent piece behind. So that's one thing that we could help you out on. Our two partners, Angus Burns, who is a restructuring professional, and Derek Kelly, who's a corporate finance professional, would be only delighted to assist. So they're just a couple of the issues that people are facing, and with that, I'll hand back to Duncan. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Damien. That's really useful. Right, and I'd like to introduce you to Alan O'Neill. So from food to fashion, a luxury to mass market, multi-site to big box, and downtown to duty free, Alan has been supporting retailers for nearly 30 years now at this stage. From his work with iconic brands like Ariantha, BWG, Circle K, Dunnes Stores, Life Pharmacies, even Ann Summers, Harrods and Selfridges, he knows how the best in the world are adapting. Now, clearly, COVID-19 has accelerated the migration to online by nearly 5 years. And that's a challenge for every Irish retailer to compete effectively with in all channels at a time when cash is king. A consultant, a speaker and a columnist with the Sunday Independent, Alan knows how to drive sales through great customer experiences. And with his practical and no-nonsense tips, I'm hoping today that he'll inspire you in this webinar to maximise your sales. Over to you, Alan.
Okay, just a slight problem here. Give me a second while the technology. Okay, so here's our new reality. We all know that we've got new standard operating procedures and an almost total lack of consumer confidence. On the back of that, footfall has dropped, and indeed sales is a challenge for most of us. The moments of truth and the wow moments have shifted, which I'll talk about some more in detail later on. Online activity, as Duncan said, has accelerated. The experts say between 3 and 5 years. What they anticipated it would achieve in 2025, we're now there right now because of this spike. But I still believe, nevertheless, that customer experience is the new battleground. That's how you're going to differentiate. That's how you're going to beat the competition and get your sales to some level of a normality and acceptance. So what I want to do today is give you some clarity, certainty, and indeed hope for your business during this crazy crisis. On the back of that, I know how much stress can come on the back of finances being down when you still have all the expenses and overheads that you normally have, and that can impact on morale. But when you get a sense of direction and clarity and hope, it can help to lift the morale, not only your own morale, but also that of your team. I promise you that if you use some of the ideas I'm putting to you here today, it will help you to drive sales. Now, as Duncan said, I am a retail head. In fact, I was a retailer many years ago. And I'm only saying this to give you a sense of, despite the fact that I work across all sectors, the one sector that I'm particularly passionate about is retail. And the changes that we've seen here are quite significant. I'm also a weekly columnist, and for those of you who do buy the Sunday Independent, you'll notice that I do regularly focus on retail and say a few words on retail. This is a series I did about a year ago, looking at specific sales incentives for the Christmas trading period. Here's some interesting shifts that McKinsey talk about in the world of retail particularly. Look, we already know spending is going to be down. We know that e-commerce is growing. Pre-COVID, food penetration on online is about 3%. They reckon it'll go to about 10% until such time as we relax and get back to normality. And they expect the jump to have moved from 3% to somewhere between 5 and 6%. But the overall online mix, now that we're talking about here, real online, I don't mean in terms of travel and airline tickets and concert tickets and so on, but real online, the overall percentage of online and the overall mix is about 12-13% pre-COVID, but that is now going to advance. We have a spike now, which is way above 13%, obviously, but it will fall back, but the fall back will not be to pre-COVID times. It will more than likely be about 16% thereabouts of the overall mix of retail. We also know that the shifts in purchasing, because people aren't going out, for example, so formal wear has taken a hammering, and there's a huge focus on home goods, etc. And of course, safety and is a key challenge. So, and payroll. But look, let's talk about retail, the changes in retail. There's too much talk in my books for this retail apocalypse. Look, if you're on any of the alerts from the US experts on a daily basis, which I am, the apocalypse in the US with the store closures is quite phenomenal. But it's not just because of online. There's a lot of clickbait goes on with this whole concept. And let's just be very, very careful. Bricks and mortar is not dying. Bricks and mortar is changing. Now, I would say to you that what we're getting here is retail Darwinism, because retail is the one sector that changes more than probably any other sector apart from digital. And if you look back over the last 50 years and how the entry of Walmart in that hyper store, and look on then through the major changes when the likes of Zara, H&M and so on came on the scene with their fast fashion. So we're well used to having all this dramatic change in the world of retail. It's going to continue. So let's not fret and get too upset about the fact that online is kicking bricks and mortar's ass. It doesn't mean that it's going to take over. It's also good at times like this to try and anchor ourselves, despite all the changes going on. What are the things that are not changing? Now here, I'm going to take you back to your maths class, share some numbers with you to illustrate my concept. So I want you to imagine punching into a calculator the following numbers: 1,000 by 40% by 50, well, the answer is 20,000. And imagine if I said to you, well, let's do the same thing, but this time start with a lower number here. Well, clearly the answer is different because simple maths. Whatever you do to the left-hand side has got to change in equal proportion on the right-hand side. Now imagine if I said to you, I want the answer to be 20,000. However, just for the crack, I want you to get to that 20,000 with that lower number over here, 900. What do you have to do in here or here to compensate? Well, they've got to go up One or both of them has got to go up to compensate for the downward fall here. Okay, simple maths. Now, where is all this going? What has this got to do with retail? Well, here are the three pillars that you are incredibly familiar with already. One number is the number of people who come in your door. And the other number is, particularly for those of you in the fashion, gift, home, jewelry business, you know that you don't convert every single customer. And then, of course, you have an average spend. All of that multiplied out gives you your sales figure. Now, here's our reality in COVID. We have a situation where footfall has definitely dropped. It's dropping all over the place. However, I want you to just look at this as a numbers game. If footfall has dropped, therefore, we've got to put extra focus on our conversion and on our average spend. Now, does it mean we're going to get back to the pre-COVID numbers? Of course not. All best experts are saying the drop is going to be about 50% this year. So even if it's 10,000 here, well, the challenge here over here is footfall still, because you only have to walk the streets, particularly in the cities, to see the numbers are so badly down. However, let's just remind ourselves that we are retailers. We know how to turn on a sixpence and adapt. And I want you to focus on conversion and ATV, because by putting extra effort here, rather just standing there waiting for customers to come and buy, but by putting extra effort into conversion and ATV, and of course footfall, well then we've got a better chance. However, I also want to say to you that it's not just about FCA, footfall, conversion and ATV. I believe strongly that customer experience is the new battleground. I'm seeing this right across industry, not just in retail. In every sector that I work in, every company is recognizing that customers have become more discerning, more demanding, and everybody is recognizing that they need to up their game. There was a time when you might be able to differentiate yourself on fabulous product by having a whiz-bang collection that beats everybody else. Well, of course, that's still important, but that's not enough to differentiate you anymore. You've got to look beyond just your product mix and think about customer experience. And if there's any doubters in the room today, well, let's just remind ourselves too of the lifetime value of a customer. This is just an example for, let's say, a supermarket. And you can see here, I'm not going to go through it, but the lifetime value of a customer in Super Value or Dunnes is nearly 300 grand over their 40-year lifetime. So when you look at your own customers, whatever business you're in, and you have regular customers that they come into however often they do, spending however much they do, you can also work out the lifetime value. And when you start thinking like that, you'll recognize the importance of customer experience, because those customers have choices. They don't have to come back to you. And unless the experience is a really sexy one that appeals to them, inspires them, motivates them, and romances them, why should they come back to you? This brings me to, what is customer service? Because, you know, there's a lot of talk about customer service and customer experience, and, you know, the way to beat online is through customer experience. And it's kind of scary because there's very little definition. When you see all these terms going out there, there's very little definition actually going with what does that actually mean. And in other times we keep hearing about the impact of the mobile phone and how that should be brought into the store. And yes, I get all that, but I want to bring you back to the fundamentals here. And the fundamental elements of a great customer experience include the 3 Ps: product and all that goes with that, people and place. And if any one of them is missing, you're going to give a bad experience. Just imagine we all go to a restaurant this evening and we have a fabulous meal. Hot, tasty, fresh, beautifully presented, and get a great waiter who's a professional, great, well-groomed, makes great eye contact, builds rapport. But if the place in the restaurant is terrible, if it's dirty, music is too loud, etc., you're not going to be too overawed with the experience. So my point here is that your customers are judging you, not necessarily in equal proportion, but they are absolutely judging you on the 3 Ps, and we should never, ever forget that. We should never just assume it's one of the Ps, like, for example, this one, or indeed just the people one. It's not, it's much, much more than that. So the next thing I want to bring you to then is, well, look, what does good look like for your particular brand? Because this 3-legged stool, I work with Pennies, I also work with Selfridges and Harrods. They're at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their brand positioning. And they can both use the three-legged stool as a way of defining great customer experience. How can they? Well, here's how. Here's what we call a brand positioning matrix. The way this works is you got price, high, low, and you got quality, high and low. What do I mean by quality? I mean the combination of the three-legged stool. So I'm sure you'd agree, Brown Thomas will be in the top right-hand corner. And Pennies, in contrast with Brown Thomas, will be more in the bottom left. That doesn't mean they're a bad brand. It doesn't mean that they sell rubbish. It just means that they are a different positioning. Now, they can both use the three-legged stool because what the three-legged stool gives you is a checklist of questions to ask yourself, and the answers to each of those questions is determined by where do you believe you should be on that matrix. So I would encourage you after this call to think about, draw this matrix. Where are you on that matrix right now vis-a-vis your competition? Another question is, where should you be? Because quality is going to change, particularly now with the new standard operating procedures and the social distancing measures and all that goes with that. The quality spectrum has moved. And I'm going to put it to you very strongly that you need to seriously consider pushing your game along further to the right. In other words, upping your game on quality. Because if you don't, the reality is you're going to get left behind because everybody else is. And if we were to come back here in a year's time, and let's say this is you today, well, by default, if you don't do anything, you'll end up back there because everybody else will have moved to the right and they'll have moved the whole market to the right. Don't get left behind. Strong message in that, and I really want you to take it on board. Now, how do you not get left behind? Well, we're going to look at some ideas around how to maybe improve your customer experience. But first of all, I want to put a question to you. And in a second, you're going to see a pop-up polling screen. And the question I want to put to you is, if you were to ask your customer to rate you on customer experience in your store right now, what score do you think would you get? So imagine you did a survey. What scores do you think you'd get? And I just need confirmation because the screen is not popping up for me. Maybe it's not meant to. Aha, there we go. So I'd like you to just pop into the scores here, where you think you would score. I'm going to give this about another 5 seconds. Okay, thank you. I'm going to end the poll. Just leave the screen there for a second, please, Philip, if you would. So let me just make a comment on that. For any of you that are familiar with the concept of NPS, Net Promoter Score, if you don't know about it, we'll chat about it another time. But it's a way of calculating your service level compared to not just the retail industry, but the whole world of customer experience. And the calculations in the NPS mechanism, now I know we're not asking exactly the same question, but just let's stay with the numbers. Those scores under 8 are not good scores. They would argue that you need to be, in today's world, in the 9s and 10s to be a really good deliverer of great customer experience. Now, don't get upset if you've given a score between 7 and 8. That's still a good score. So yes, well done. That's still a good score. And those of you 4 to 6, thank you for your honesty. And clearly, you know you've got work to do. But guys, those of you in the 7 to 8s, I want to challenge you here, going back to the previous matrix. You need to push the game even further on to get into the 9s and 10s in today's world. Philip, I'll let you stop that now if you don't mind. And I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so, and my slide, there we go. So look guys, I'm not going to go through every item on the checklist here. I'm going to point out a couple of things. If we had more time, I'd go through each item on this checklist and get you to think about what does good look like for your brand. But I'm just going to focus on a couple of them for today. What is the relevant edit for your product range right now today? Given that the example I gave earlier on, nobody's buying formal wear. But within your product mix, what can you push out front so that you can then work on your presentation and to get your salespeople behind those products that you know you have a good chance of selling during this pandemic? Also think about this old-fashioned term, flagships and category killers. What do you own? If you're just a Me Too brand with a collection of product that everybody else has in your particular sector, you don't stand out. So I remember working with a retailer up in the north of the UK some time ago. Oh, and actually I'll give you a better example. Anthony Ryan's in Galway, they have a kitchen shop and I remember they had a very, very strong way of building their product mix. Like in a flagship, they had Le Creuset as a collection. So they were the destination, you could argue, in the northwest of Ireland for Le Creuset. They had the biggest collection of products, of colors, of sizes, of shapes. And that was became a destination for them. That gave them something that they could say they owned. And then category killers is where you might say, well, in the world of homewares, maybe kitchen or candles or whatever. Now, that doesn't mean that Anthony Ryan store in Galway didn't also sell luggage and furnishings and curtain rails, et cetera, But in terms of standout product categories, this gave them something they could shout about. So when they went and did their marketing activity, their messaging to customers, they had a point of difference. And of course, they used Le Creuset and other category killers to shout about that, gave them a sense of difference from their competitors. But when you focus like that on the flagship or a category killer and build up on that and have your good, better, and best within those collections, that gives you a point of difference. I want to get you to look at place here as well. So we've looked at product very briefly. Second one is place. And the ones I want to just touch on today are clearly, guys, health, safety, housekeeping, and hygiene has got to be number one. And you need to be sending a very, very clear message without being over the top, without being sloppy about it. But how do you really give your customers reassurance that you're taking them seriously? For those of you in the fashion, in the apparel business, I've seen a device now that can be used as a fitting room where it provides theater to the customers. It shows the customer that you are hygienically cleaning the product before they try it on and after, even if they reject it. So instead of having to go into quarantine, but my point here is that there are things out there that you need to be giving reassurance to your customers. So clearly that's got to be number one, followed by your adjacencies and master plan. So going back to my point earlier on about what products, what edit is going to sell in this environment. Well, then if that means shifts to your adjacencies and master plan accordingly, so be it. I was doing a strategy session for Phoenix a couple of months back before they reopened. And this was a major part of the discussion. How do they carve out their floor plan so that they can then obviously put forward sportswear and casual wear and the impact that has, the domino impact that has on other categories. Edutainment. So this is, now look, I know you're going to say, but nobody's coming into town, nobody's going shopping. Well, that's not true. The cities are getting a tough time. But to give you something that is different, to give your customers a reason to come into you, you got to think differently. So whether it's some form of education stroke entertainment or entertainment, which is allowing the customer to find some way of interacting. And that doesn't only have to be through digital, which costs investment, I appreciate. So you got to put on your thinking hats here and get some inspiration, go and look around you and see what you can come up with to provide ideas around edutainment and entertainment. But of course, you know I'm going to say this, you simply must have some sort of an online presence. You cannot not. I'll be writing an article about this next week, actually, because I've seen the figures coming out of domain.ie and the numbers of retailers that still haven't taken up the Enterprise Ireland grant, or even if they can't get the grant, but even haven't tried to go online through plugins with Shopify or whatever it might be, it's not where it needs to be. So I want to challenge you that and you know, multi-channel is also good. Omni-channel is where it requires significant investment in technology. Let's take the little bit of pressure off you here. Multi-channel is where you have multiple channels where customers can buy from you. That could even be over the telephone. That could even be through email or old-fashioned writing, and indeed in store. And it also means having some sort of a sales channel online. That's multi-channel. Omni-channel is where you find some way to seamlessly show the customer that they are joined up. Now that's a big challenge and a big investment. Don't fret if you haven't got omni-channel, but do fret if you haven't got all multi-channels. I want to make a point about the conflict here between dwell time and grab and go. We know that customers are constantly looking at retailing at the moment, at shopping at the moment as a destination and as a project. They're going in and they're going out. Few are browsing. Few are browsing. But maybe there are things we can do, going back to my previous slides, that could try to increase the dwell time through edutainment or entertainment, but also facilitate grab and go. I was down in the supermarket earlier today getting a few things, and they had milk at the front of the store, but they also, and just a small collection, but they had the main display of milk down the back. So they were facilitating those people who didn't want to go deep into the store. So what's the equivalent for you? Do you have any grab and go customers that you need to think about? Now, omnichannel, let's say a few words about omnichannel or online. Again, I'm going to say don't fret about omnichannel, about online. Guys, FCA, in other words, footfall, conversion and average spend, is critical here too. The same thinking goes into driving footfall, converting customers and increasing average spend. And you only have to look at that beast called Amazon to see how they are so clever at doing that. But you can, Amazon are not as good at the product descriptions as you could be. And also we know about their reviews and the enormous number of fake reviews that are going on out there. But you can be an authentic brand that romances your customers, and you can do that with really good product descriptions. So don't just take a copy and paste from your suppliers on the product descriptions. Think about your customers. How can you make your descriptions more sexy? Authentic, of course, but still sexy, so that it romances a customer and really, really brings emotion and provenance into your product that tells a little bit about the history of the product. I think this is really important and a great opportunity for you. Now, we also know that click and collect, of course, there are options here. Actually, BOPUS should be buy online, pick up in store. BOPUS, I think it is the BOPUS is there's variations of this. They're all saying the same thing, click and collect. So guys, click and collect. I know there's a great pharmacy in Tralee. I was working with them before Christmas time. I think it's called CH Pharmacy. I hope I'm not wrong in saying that. And they have a very, very strong click and collect department set up in their new shop fit. And of course, look at this, guys. We know that when customers come into store, they buy more. So the great advantage of click and collect is that when we offer that facility, we get the customers in, then a human can interact with them and try and convince them to buy more. And it's, look at why are Amazon, Warby Parker, why are all these brands opening stores now in the US? Well, two reasons, or many reasons. One is that the cost of recruiting customers through online, would you believe, is lower for them with physical stores. But also they know that they can build rapport with customers in store and get them to buy more. So it's for the direct to consumer, the pure play online retailers are now buying up, and they're going to buy up more now because of the number of stores closing in the US. Curbside collection. I think it was Best Buy in the US really cracked this one. They brought in technology to enable them to do it. Now they're big retailers, but even for you in a local retailer within your town, there are things you can do to make it easy for the customer who doesn't want to come into your store. They still want to come out, and maybe curbside collection. Try and find some ways to personalize. Look how fantastic Netflix and indeed Amazon are at doing this. I get emails every day telling me what I should be watching next on Netflix based on my previous watched history. Now I know that takes technology, but there are many retailers around the country who don't have that seriously high volume of customers, and we should be able to monitor, particularly using the 80/20. And for those customers that we do have data on, or even insights on, well, tailor our messages for them. Whatever it might be a text message. And it's not just a general text message saying that we've specials on this weekend. It's, Alan, we have a special promotion for you. And you're tailoring it to make me feel that it's just me that's getting this. The wow moments have also shifted. And I'd encourage you then to put personalized notes in the package. I got a book from Kenny's bookshop the other day. I wanted a book. I've been buying from Amazon for years, and I annoyed myself. And I said, no, that's not fair. I bought from Kenny's, and the book arrived, and inside was a note from, I think it's Thomas Kenny. And yeah, I just thought that was nice. It was not quite personalized, but you could personalize that. you could, and I know Louis Copeland's do this too, you could personalize that note by saying, Alan, thank you and appreciate your business. Focus on returns. Now, guys, we know that returns are a pain in the ass and they're expensive, but you've got to just, it's part of the cost of doing business. And here's an interesting piece of research. And what this is telling us that in the UK, this was done, that 68% of customers are influenced to buy when they know they can return for free. Now, I'm not saying you need to do that. I'm not saying that because it's very expensive, but it's just worth knowing that the issue of returns is a messy one, and it's a controversial one, and it's one you're going to have to give serious consideration to. Don't just ignore it. Consider it. Whatever the answer is your own answer, but at least consider it. Now, it's the 2nd or 3rd, whatever date it is of September. In the not too distant future, we have this big animal coming towards that we hope will be an animal. But guys, because of queuing, and now queuing in the cold, don't forget, we need to find a way to really, really drive traffic through our stores efficiently. So we've got a running time between now and then to get it right, so that we can cut down on queuing time. Now, I know there's apps that are out there that can help you with that, and customers make appointments, but we also know there's going to be more growth, more of a spike in online at Christmas time. So if you're one of the ones who hasn't yet embraced online, you still have 3 months to get there. So go and talk to people. There are companies out there. Matrix Internet is one that I've worked with in the past, and they will help you even apply for the grant. So all that said, the 3rd leg of the stool is, to me, is probably the most important one. Because for those customers who are coming into your store, there's so much you can do to romance them, to inspire them, to sell to them, to really encourage them to buy. And forgive me, I'm shocked. I'm appalled at what I'm seeing out there in terms of the lack of engagement by salespeople in retail. When of all times, this is when your people need to be engaging, going forward proactively and connecting with customers, chatting to them, saying hello, making eye contact. Now, this is an age-old challenge for retail. It's been around since Tibbs Eve. And it's no retailers have really cracked it. But God, guys, this is the time you've got to crack it. You need to get your people pushed out forward. And I don't mean here pushy selling, because we all hate that. What I am saying is, though, get out there, engage with them, walk forward, smile, interact, and welcome them. Thank them for coming in. Consult with them. Consult with them on their needs. Now, this is so basic that it's a shock that I'm actually saying it, you might think. Well, I'm saying it because it's still not happening. Forgive me for going on a rant here, guys, but I really feel this is your golden opportunity. This is what differentiates you from online. Online can never replace B&M, bricks and mortar, in this sense, because we know shopping is not buying. That the opportunity for your people to interact and engage and really, really wow the customer is there. Please, please, please consider it. Now, here's another poll. Philip will pop up the screen in a second. So a couple of questions for you with regard to your people. I want you to think about, does your team know exactly what great customer experience means for your particular store? By that, I mean exactly. In other words, are you in the top right of the brand matrix, or are you in the bottom left? Or are you in the bottom right, wherever you are? Do your team know where you are? And separate question, have you trained your team on how to upsell and to link sell? You know the difference. Upsell is where you try to get a customer to buy a 70 ml instead of a 50 ml fragrance. That's upselling. But link selling is where you try and get them to buy a skincare in addition to the fragrance. So there's a very strong yes, your team does know about your customer experience. That's very impressive. Well done, well done. So therefore, in your organization, you've got good dialogue going on. So good, fantastic. Have you trained your team on how to upsell and link sell? So we've got an 80% on that one. Again, strong, well done. And so listen, that's encouraging. Philip, we can close that down now, thank you. Okay, so let's end that. So well done. That's higher than I thought it was going to be, and I'm very encouraged and pleased to see that. So let's move on. Okay, so getting the message out there, and I want you to consider windows as if you need to be reminded. This is a real window that I live in Clontarf-Raheny area, and I went shopping for something in particular the other day. This is a retail store. It happens to be a British one, but can you believe in this day and age that this retail store allowed the window to look at that? That manager should be fired on the spot after he or she's brought outside to look back in. So guys, your windows, you need to just freshen up your windows because they still have a role to play. Be cheerful and relevant in your teams and in your messaging and of course your windows. Your advertising spend, coming out of the last global financial crisis, we know that those companies, and I'm not just talking retail here, those companies that maintained their cash spend on advertising were the ones who came out of the downturn quicker and increased their market share. Now, look, I know that requires cash, but if you have cash and you have been spending money on advertising, do keep spending it. Owners and managers, get into the trenches yourself, get out there, interact. Do not be in an office at this time. You need to be leading from the front, interacting with your own people, giving them inspiration, but also letting your customers see you both in store and online. So use your own name in your social media. I was very impressed during the lockdown with Grain's Shoes in Dublin and in Kilkenny, Carlo, is it, where Tom Grain was actually active himself. He wasn't trying to sell, but he's actually sending out motivational quotes in Facebook. And I just thought, well, you know something, that's fantastic. That's staying connected. But we also know that the results, the cost of online, the incredible explosion of activity in online over the last few months means that to stand out in online, you've got to be super creative. You've got to be really, really clever and challenge yourself to just think outside the box. How do you stand out? Whatever about standing out with your store, come back to category killers and flagships, but now with regard to your online, you need to be also super creative and think about how can you stand out online. In saying that, I'd say to go to where the fish are. So when you're spending money online, don't just go with a scattergun approach. Go to where the fish are. Stay local. And we know that there's a huge focus on local, and we know with Champion Green. So let's exploit that. Exploit that great thinking and camaraderie, the green jersey stuff that's going on out there. So, but make sure you spend your money on, whether it be Facebook or whatever, cleverly. Just don't do scattergun all over the place. And the age-old question with marketing spend, is it about building brand or is it about building footfall? Well, no doubt about it. At this moment in time, it's about building footfall. During the lockdown, it might have been about building brand, but now, absolutely, it's about building footfall. I want to touch on the price debate before I come to a close in a moment. I'm a bit concerned that around the country, there's a lot of retailers discounting. Now, I do appreciate in the fashion industry, spring, summer stock, you've got to get rid of it. That's the natural course of events, the July sale, and you still have a lot of that product out there. So there's a lot of stores still in sale on spring, summer merchandise. But I'm talking about stores that don't have a spring, summer constraint, and they too are discounting. And in fact, there was an article in the Indo recently where it showed that Sean Pollock wrote that nearly a fifth of businesses reported offering low price in some sort of to stimulate demand. Now, guys, I want you to just think about that, because I know the market is causing a downward spiral in price. I know it is, but there are more ways to skin the cat. You need to protect your margin. You need to protect your margin. And also, if you're not already a low-cost leader like Aldi, don't try to undercut a low-cost leader. They'll beat you at it. They're used to it, just like Ryanair in the airline industry. Aldi are the low-cost. Even Dunn stores have recognized this, and Dunn stores have not tried to compete on the lower end. They've moved up market. What's that telling you? You cannot beat the low-cost guys. And when you go discounting, I understand, And it's easy for me to say when the need for cash is there, but there are other things. Don't let yourself down. Challenge yourself to think beyond that. Focus on other strengths. What other things might customers value within your product mix where you can do things like, for example, adding more value, or look, seek alternative exclusive products if you can, that others are not trying to match you or beat you on price. Now, I know it's easier said than done, and I might even be annoying you with this particular slide, but I do feel I have to say it because to me, it's a really important point. I know the importance of margin for you. I'm going to finish. This is Selfridges. Selfridges are at it again. And they've launched this new project called Project Earth after Project Ocean a few years back. And look at this. They've developed this new concept because they, on the back of COVID-19, they're also seeing, as you and I are, they're seeing a huge swing towards more environmental awareness. They kind of go hand in hand. The health and the environment go hand in hand. And they're jumping on that, and they've developed 3 new propositions. They're selling second-hand merchandise. They're selling rent with us. They're selling a rental service. Now, that's now a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US, where you can rent clothing from brands and then maybe buy them. If you rent a pair of trousers and you love the fit after you've rented them, you can then make an offer and buy that pair of trousers second-hand. It's a growing market. It ties in with the whole circular economy notion as well. So don't be afraid of it. So within your mix, are there some messages that you can, or some new ideas that you can bring to the fore in your business? With that, I'm going to close. I'm going to say to you that, look, today was about just a really whistle-stop tour. I wanted to challenge you, but also give you clarity, bring you back to the fundamentals, the basics, give you certainty, because when you start putting a plan together, that can give you personally hope for the future. And when you communicate that and get your teams involved, that lifts morale, because then you get good followers following good leaders. And if you can come out strongly saying that, look, yes, things are tough, but be positive. Don't be just down in the mouth all the time, as best you can, and try to be positive with plans. And by the small wins, you could have a plan for today. Let's just sell whatever, another 100 quid's worth. And that can lift the morale of your teams. And let me say again, this is about driving sales. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is about driving sales in your organization through great customer experiences. And everything here is achievable. I didn't put things to you that's going to cause significant capital investment. Most of what I said here can be done within your own budget of no extra pennies at all. Honestly, and I've seen it. So don't think this is all about investing more money in online. Yes, it is for those of you who don't have an online presence. You need to spend a few bob. You have no choice, you'll get left behind. But for those of you who are already online, I hope I've given you some ideas here that help you to polish up on that, but also to see that, look, it's not about spending money all the time. I want you to develop a positive mindset, like I said. Focus on sales in the short term. Cash is king, profit will return later in time, and it's a good year away. Differentiate yourself by focusing on your customer. And then with your team, engage your team in this, build a plan to refine, polish up your apples, polish up your product mix, polish up your place, drive online, and do all that by engaging your own people with the 3 C's. Now, I want to make you one last free offer, genuine. I want you to look, I know this webinar here, we want to get this all done and dusted inside the hour, and we're on target to do that. But I want you to there is more detail if you care to go to my website, and there, just for you on this webinar, I want to offer you a free online course. So it's more of what you've seen here today. You can access it, no strings attached, for free. It's about a 40-minute video of me again with more slides, different ones, and a bit more detail that I'd like you to just go and access. And even if you missed out on some of the things that I've said here today, you want to go back over them, some of them are actually in that online course. So feel free to go on my website and have a look. That's it. Thank you for listening. I'm going to hand back to Duncan now, who's going to then pose a question or two if there are any. And if not, we'll have a chat anyway. Duncan, over to you.
Hi, thank you very much, Alan. You can hear me fine, I take it, yeah?
Yeah.
Great stuff. Okay, Alan, so I'm not going to let you off scot-free. So you've just talked there about a number of retailers. You mentioned one or two Irish ones, but who do you think is really doing it well? Who impresses you most out there at the moment in terms of their service offering, Alan?
Well, you know something, Duncan? It's very much a localized thing because I haven't been outside the pale since the lockdown. I plan to do this month, but I'm going to talk locally here. I mean, for example, I can shop. I've got choices very close to me between Lidl, Aldi, SuperValu, and Nolan's. Nolan's is the one of those brands that resisted jumping on the symbol group, be it WG or Mace. And you go down there and there's a strong customer service ethic where the team are quite happy, you can see that, and customers are very good at noticing if staff are happy or not. And they are happy, you can see it because they're smiley, they're friendly, and they're proactive. So that's one example, Duncan. And you know, so any of the examples I would give would tend to be localized. And I have interviewed some others then for my Sindo column, and I know some of your members too are really, really busy in this space at really trying to go out there and give a great service.
Okay, that's great. Now there's me thinking that you'd taken your foreign holiday in Portugal and disappeared off to play golf in Connemara, but obviously I was wrong.
Not over to play golf, will you stop?
Just one other thing that struck me as you were talking there about you know, the impact of COVID, and I'm just thinking around, you know, you talked a lot about people and happy smiley faces and all that good stuff, and yet, you know, we're facing our customers at the moment with masks on and face visors and all of that sort of thing. So how can we get that message across to customers that, you know, we want them in the store when we've got those barriers between ourselves?
So I think there's, you know, many stores do have a meter and greeter. Back down in Nolan's, they've got a girl inside the door handing us out a wet wipe to clean the trolley. And she is, despite the fact that she's standing there all day long, how she manages to maintain a smile and a greeting, she does. So it is hello and it's a greeting. You can tell by somebody's eyes, Duncan, if they're smiling. So despite the fact that the mask is there or the screen, certainly with the screen it's easy, but even with a mask, people smile with their eyes as well. And that's the true, authentic smile. But also don't forget voice, despite the fact that it's muffled. So you may have to speak louder than you normally would. And guys, these are all the efforts we have to make. So speak louder and say hello and welcome people. So yes, Duncan, it's as basic as that.
Okay, thanks for that. I've got a couple more for you. You know, clearly we're not always going to get it right all the time, are we? So, you know, what's your best tip for those customers where we get it wrong? So what happens when we mess up? What should we do?
Well, I think customers are particularly forgiving at the moment more than they ever are, because it's a bit like on Zoom calls. You know, dogs jump up on laps and babies cry, and people on Zoom calls just smile and laugh because they're forgiving. We're all in this together kind of thing. And I honestly believe that there's a lot of that customers are genuinely out there feeling that, look, they're forgiving. But at the same time, there is a very, very effective tool for handling complaints, and it's called EPCAF, EPCAF. E for empathize, P for probe, A then is where you agree in action, and then follow up. So EPCAF is a way of just calming the customer down. I think getting into conflict with customers is the worst thing you can do, because they're stressed, they're hassled, they're bothered too. So it's all about dialogue, communications, and just calming the customer down. You won't do that by being defensive. You'll certainly do it by apologizing and just acknowledging and then engaging with the solution very quickly.
Okay, and I've got a question here from Stuart Daly, who said, would love to know, firstly, enjoyed your webinar, but would love to know who you feel are really doing well and have upped their game in terms of their online presence. Have you got any great online people that you'd recommend?
I'm sorry, I don't. I'd have to just now try and wing that one. I'm not going to, that would be unfair. I don't.
Okay.
And I will do some studying on it, but I haven't, so no. I mean, other than, you know, those big brands that we already know, and not just in retail, who are super duper and really great at personalizing. But in terms of the, I'm actually working with an Iraqi guy in London right now who's developing a whole concept around consistency of how products are described online. And to me, that's a key thing here. So watch out for, I'm going to say it again, I said it earlier, watch out for your descriptions. Don't just copy and paste from your suppliers. Do think about your descriptions, because that is a way of engaging with your customer using your voice.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're struggling to get that, isn't it? You know, you actually wonder whether there's a real opportunity for some of the Irish retailers in terms of their online presence to become really great at that sort of thing. It's because, you know, you're right, nothing immediately comes to mind, does it? One final question, Alan, before I let you go, and that is, you know, we've all gone through doom, gloom and depression, I guess, for the last 6 months. What's your best tip for keeping our spirits up? What should we be doing?
Well, I would say have a plan. And even if it's, and you know, planning is very difficult in this environment. You know, the 5-year plans are certainly gone. Even the 400 days plans are gone because the future is so uncertain. I mean, don't you just feel so sorry for the pubs right now, where I organized a mental health seminar for them just the other day, seriously. So I would say it's as best you can, trying to look for quick, short, realistic wins. And that might be on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, and getting your teams involved and incentivizing them in some way to have, be it a weekly target, albeit a much lower one than was there before. But if you can just get those bite-sized chunks and wins, I think that sense of achievement, it's like even the basics of time management, Duncan. When you start ticking things off your list, you feel good about yourself. So I would say, I mean, look, there's all sorts of mental health ways of minding your own demeanor. I'm not going to go there. That's not my expertise. I'm purely a commercial guy. And I would say it's about having bite-sized chunks that you know you can deliver on.
Great stuff. Alan, listen, thank you very much. That's been a fabulous hour that we've had with you. I know certainly from my side, it's left me with a lot of thoughts. I'm sure it's very thought-provoking for everybody that's attended today. Thank you for kicking this off. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Alan O'Neill. Look out for him in the Sunday Independent this weekend. And I'd like to thank you all for attending today and just remind you that this is all recorded online. So if you want to look at the recording at a later date, then please do so. Alan, thanks a million. Talk to you soon, and bye for now for everybody.
Thank you. Goodbye.